What's a company that's viewed pretty positively today but has a dark history? Food Lion, which goes by many different names throughout the world, had a scandal in the early 90s where they bleached meat and repackaged it. There was a case about 20 years ago where an undercover reporter slipped into a Food Lion and filmed what they were doing. What they were doing was pretty bad. Food Lion actually sued the reporter and news organization for trespassing, and kind of unbelievably, they won. This was quite the landmark case in undercover journalism. Chiquita. They once funded rebels in a South American country to overthrow the government, in order to have land to build banana plantations. Banana plantations are famously laborious places. If you've ever heard the song Come Mr. Tally Man, Tally Me Banana, that's what it is about. From Wikipedia, Deo, the Banana Boat Song, is a traditional Jamaican folk song. The song has Mento influences, but it is commonly classified as an example of the better-known calypso music. It is a work song, from the point of view of dock workers working the night shift loading bananas onto ships. Can't read that title without singing. I can't read it without thinking of Beetlejuice. When I saw that movie as a young child. YouTube link. Chiquita used to be the Barons. When banana laborers went into strike and organized protests, they got the US government to put pressure on the Colombian army to violently repress it. The army basically just opened fire over unarmed protesters, then tried to cover up the whole thing. Up till now there's no real number for the amount of deaths, but probably around 1,000. 100 Years of Solitude has a reference to this event. I refuse to buy bananas with Chiquita stickers. Web link. I refuse to buy bananas with Chiquita stickers. Me too, though, I can never remember the details. I'll never forget to not buy Chiquita or Nestle. Not to mention cause some political assassinations. Deo also was, at the time it was popularized by Harry Belafonte, a pretty political song, or at least a worker's song. Now it's kind of seen as a kid's song. On that note, This Land Is Your Land is more socialism than nationalism, but my elementary school didn't get the message. It actually is way worse than that. Chiquita was originally the United Fruit Company. It has been a while, so some of the details are a little fuzzy. From what I think I remember, Guatemala was developing its railroad so they can get goods to ports for export. Well, they ran out of money and couldn't expand. In steps in UFCO saying they will pay for the railroad as long as they can get exclusive use and an easement around the tracks. This gave UFCO the ability to use the infrastructure for free, railway and port, but Guatemalan citizens/government had to pay for its use. UFCO started using the easements around the tracks as banana plantations and would ship the product on the trains that were nearby. Everything was fine. UFCO created jobs and infrastructure for export as well as travel for tourists visiting. After a while, things turned south when the government decided that it didn't want to pay anymore and tried to take the land back. UFCO financed a military coup and took over every aspect of the Guatemalan government and was then referred to as the Octopus since it had its hands in everything. They were also known for hiring militias to keep workers in line and would hurt/kill anyone who complained about pay/conditions, tried to leave because they didn't want to work there anymore, or tried to unionize. After UFCO lost an antitrust suit is when Chiquita took over and kept doing business as usual as long as they could. If I am not mistaken, Dole and Del Monte have shady past too. Edit. Check out the podcast Swindled for the entire story and stories from other pieces of crap across the world. DuPont is still one of the largest textile companies in the world, and Dark Waters was a true story. If you haven't seen it, do. It's about how making Teflon poisons everything forever. Outstanding film. Really shows that a single lawyer with a bar license is the worst threat to bad corporate actors. One guy spent over a decade working pro bono against DuPont when they poisoned an entire West Virginia town. DuPont set their army of lawyers against him. And he effing thrashed them. One client after another, one by one, got them multi-million-dollar settlements and bled DuPont dry. It was just him. He didn't have a team. He left his firm because they represented DuPont and he was disgusted by them. After he won a fourth or fifth settlement in a row, each one bigger than the last, DuPont surrendered and paid out over $500 million to the poor citizens of that town. Get effed. I watched the movie and was happy realizing that cases got millions in settlements. Then I read about DuPont and learned that their average yearly revenue is about $21 billion. Cried at the injustice. These companies just disregard the law because they can afford them. Ford literally did this. They released a defective car that was abnormally dangerous in the event of a car accident, and calculated that it would have cost more to recall all the cars and fix the problem. So they opted to just let people die in wrecks and pay out settlements. Learned about this in an engineering ethics class. If I remember correctly, they priced the human life at $75,000. Then they lost millions and had to recall the car anyway. I do research about the toxicity of those compounds, PFOA and PFOS, and they're intense. We still know next to nothing about how they work. Help me understand something. Is it still safe to buy our pans from retailers? I see all the PFOA-free labels and I just don't know if that's just marketing BS or maybe I'm just paranoid. Is toxic Teflon still in our pans? I feel like I've read that once they found out how bad it was, they switched to something else that is likely just as bad, but it doesn't have the research done to prove it yet. It's probably safe for you, but not the environment. Teflon is non-stick because it's unreactive. This makes it so that it passes through your digestive system intact. The toxic waste made when making the pans, though, that's what's poisoning the world. The Devil We Know is a documentary about that. Used to be on Netflix, not sure if it still is. I worked for a company that did a lot of work for DuPont, and a lot of the older guys saw it all firsthand. Dole, the fruit company, organized the overthrow of the indigenous government on Hawaii so it could join the USA. Chiquita did something very similar in Honduras. There's a reason they're called the Banana Wars. And the reason why we have the term Banana Republic. Who decided starting a clothing brand named after this concept was an awesome idea? Apparently the store originally sold safari and travel-themed clothes, so I guess it is actually referring to banana republics. I always say this and no one believes me. When I was a teenager, you would go into BR and there would be jungle sounds playing, and they had this musty mist stuff they would spray in the stores. And most everything was like cargo pants, Panama hats, etc. Yes. I went to the one in New York City in 1987 or so, and it had a huge tree in the middle, birds chirping, etc. It was so cool and so different from the banana republics of today. They were originally known for their Spanish Army surplus uniform pants. They were called Franco pants, as the rest of them had kind of a target pattern on them, so it was jokingly said Franco used the target to kick soldiers. Their catalog was a lot like Trader Joe's is now, where they discussed new items they had gotten in stock, and the history behind them. Their stores had character. As I recall, they put things like military vehicles inside and camouflage netting in them. But more artsy than a typical surplus store. Then they turned into another mall clothing store. No doubt they made more money that way, so I can't fault them, but I miss the original store. Edit, the seat of the pants, not the rest. United Fruit Company is now Chiquita. Web link. United Fruit is responsible for the overthrow of nearly every government in Central and South America in the late 1800s and early 1900s. General Smedley Butler, USMC, one of few recipients to earn the Medal of Honor for gallantry twice, struck down many of these insurrections against legally elected governments. He performed his duty admirably and with distinction. However, after his retirement, he spoke out against his service, stating, he felt, he and his Marines were nothing more than mercenaries protecting the corporate interests of a few men and lawmakers, while he was slaughtering thousands of peasants. And Guatemala. The CEO of United Fruit Company's brother was the head of the CIA, and mysteriously the CIA decided to overthrow the governments of Honduras and Guatemala and put pro-USA fruit business heads of state in power, under the guise of being anti-communist actions. United Fruit Company is now known as Chiquita. Edit. My mistake, he was actually the CEO's lawyer, and his brother, the CIA director, was on the board of directors for United Fruit. When they took over, they outlawed the native language and turned much of the population into indentured servants forced to farm pineapples and sugarcane. They more imported labor. The native population was only about 100,000 people at that time. That's why there's such a huge influence there today of different cultures like Portuguese, Filipino, and Chinese. This isn't quite true. The Hawaiian Pineapple Company, what became Dole, was founded a few years after the overthrow. The overthrow, and the fact that the first president of Hawaii was James Dole's cousin, was part of the reason the company was started, rather than the other way around. The annexation of Hawaii was likely for the sake of a different agricultural product, sugarcane. The Hawaiian Pineapple Company was very unethical as a place to work for different reasons, but it wasn't actually involved in the annexation. For stuff like that, you can look to United Fruit, now Chiquita, or Standard Fruit, the other half of Dole. Continental Tires. Stock for Mercedes and other luxury cars. They tested their durability by making World War II camp prisoners walk in shoes made with their rubber soles upward to 30 miles each day. Many collapsed and died from dehydration and from being malnourished already. Edit: the ones administering the quality control test didn't care if the shoes fit the tester. Imagine walking 30 miles in shoes a couple sizes too small. Edit 2: the company makes more than just tires, but it's mostly known for its tires. From a New York Times article. While supplying the German military with tires, bullet-resistant fuel tanks, gas masks and brakes for battle tanks, Continental and its subsidiaries also produced consumer products like soles for shoes and hot water bottles that helped fulfill the regime's promise to deliver prosperity to the German people. I was watching those World War II documentaries, and one of the episodes focused on companies that benefited from the war. A good portion of the episode mentioned Continental, a company who is reconciling with its past and is making positive commendable effort to not hide it, and other companies. I forgot which big company that was mentioned, but it's still not taking any responsibility for abusing war prisoners. Total coincidence that I had replaced all 4 Continental tires with another set 2 days prior. On the same note, Bayer. The researchers tested on people in the camps. Bayer came here to make sure this was mentioned. People think, oh, the aspirin dudes. Yeah. That and chemical weapons and human testing. And now agricultural chemicals. I believe their old parent company was convicted of violations and dismantled for their participation. Farben. Makers of Zyklon B. They propped up one side of the, which featured a lot of child soldiers and machetes. It's the sort of thing you'd expect from an oil company, or maybe a mining group. But tires seem so wholesome. Rubber industry has a long line of human rights abuses to be blamed for. Wholesome? Isn't the rubber industry one the worst and most deadly in the entire world? Like 1 million people in the Congo died. Sorry little boy or girl, it seems daddy didn't meet his rubber quota, so you're going to have to say goodbye to those hands. It even got worse when they just realized it was easier to go chop off the next tribe over's hands than it was to harvest the rubber. Till everyone made stuff for the Nazis. Went on a walking tour in Berlin. The guide told us there was this huge uproar relating to this. Apparently the company that had made a waterproof graffiti-proof coating for the memorial to the murdered Jews was a former subsidiary of the one that had made gas for the gas chambers. Web link. I learned the same on my walking tour there. Go figure. Bayer. They paid to test its drugs on unwilling human subjects. These included paying a retainer to SS physician Helmut Vetter to test Rutenol and other sulfonamide drugs on deliberately infected patients at the Dachau, Auschwitz, and Gusen. They also had prisoners purposefully infected with typhus so they could test anti-typhus drugs. Farben also manufactured the cans of Zyklon B gas that were used in Auschwitz's gas chambers. Farben was a massive conglomerate that included Bayer and other major companies such as BASF, Hoechst, Aventis, and Agfa. And they didn't exactly clean up their act in later years. In the 80s they knew their blood products for hemophiliacs were tainted with AIDS, but the financial investment was considered too high for Bayer Cutter to destroy the supply, so they sold it more or less worldwide, eventually withholding it from America and Europe, but continued to push on Latin America and Asian markets. Thousands died. IBM built and sold tabulating machines to the Nazis that helped them run the camps. Just an example. Specific machines too. Not like the Nazis bought some random computers and used them for that. Like the US said no more business with the Nazis, and IBM made a company that made computers for Nazis. Mostly accurate. With Hitler's rise to power came an immense industrial boom in Germany, and everyone wanted on board. As a wise woman once said during the Cold War, "Go into NASA sometime and yell Heil Hitler, whoop. They all stand up." Keep your friends close, and your possible genetic clones of Adolf Hitler closer. Thank you for that gem, Mallory. Once they go up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Yeah, many companies got in the deep end well before the final solution was even in the planning stages. They were started to make the stakeholders money, like every other for-profit outfit. Wasn't it Hugo Boss that made Nazi uniforms? Yes. Bosch made the shower heads or look like shower heads for the gas chambers. But yes, most companies today that went through World War II did military contracts, most likely to survive, I would assume. Was listening to something on NPR a while back about this German company that makes stone ovens for bakeries today. Give you 3 guesses at what they made during the Nazi years. $. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.